Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you very much for joining in. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and thank you for giving us your precious time. Please accept our Danvat Pranams as well. And we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 3, Chapter 5, which is Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. And today we are on text 12. So over to you, Prabhuji. We can read or recite whatever you, whenever you give us instructions. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So we'll start off with Mangalacharan and then we'll move on to the verse. Om Jnana Tirmahanasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jetam Surto Pangod Mama Mandir Matergati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shrimad Ratnagara Simasenasto Shrimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prashtali Bisevya Manosmarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsi Vatatatastitaha Karshan Venusvanir Gopi Gopinata Shriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chevam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayam Uderayet Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloker Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So, reading from, today is the 17th of July, 2025, and we are reading from, as Mataji has mentioned, Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 5th chapter, 12th verse. The chapter is entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya, and we are on verse 12. So I will move on to the Sanskrit and we'll read the translation. Munir vivakshur bhagavad gunanam sakhapi te bharatam aha krishna yasmin rinam gramya sukanavuvadhe matir grihita na harer katyaham katayaham excuse me, Matir Grihita Nu Harer Katayam. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Abhay Charanarvindam Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Your friend. So this is Vidur speaking to Maitreya Rishi. After Vidura left Hastinapur, just for a quick recap, Vidur was the younger brother and ultimately the prime minister and main advisor to Maharaj Dhritarashtra. After giving counsel to Dhritarashtra to give the rightful share to the Pandavas, Vidur was spoken to incredibly harshly by Duryodhana. And in such a way that Vidur realized that whatever he had to give was falling on deaf ears. Just like a man doesn't try and plant, high quality seeds on stony ground or onto the tarmac. Vidur had this realization that the pearls of wisdom that he had, ultimately as an expansion of Dharmaraj, of Yamaraj, the king of good wisdom and dharma, when he realized Duryodhana's response to his counsel, not only as his uncle, but also as his prime minister, he realized that there was no benefit for him to be that place. So he silently took off his royal paraphernalia and left without any pomp or any ceremony or circumstance, and left to go and understand the supreme truth and understand more about the topics relating to the Supreme Lord. And on his journey, he met Uddhav, and Uddhava, being younger and albeit one of the closest confidants to Krishna, understood that even though in one sense Uddhava was more realized than Vidur, being with Krishna every waking moment, and as we know that Uddhav was with Krishna before Krishna woke, he would be at Krishna's bedside, and he would stay with Krishna until after Krishna would sleep in Dwarka. So therefore, he was one of the closest confidants, and the final instructions of Krishna went to Uddhava Gita. After the Bhagavad Gita and the Venu Gita came first, Gopi Gita, Bhagavad Gita. The final Gita of Krishna was the Uddhava Gita. So the final instructions of Krishna, which make up the 11th canto, were given to Uddhava. So he is a very exalted person. But Uddhava, realizing that, Vidur was actually the uncle of Krishna, he was elder to him in age. And to show that respect, Uddhava, while he was qualified to instruct Vidur, and indirectly he did in the previous chapters, he has guided Vidur to now go to Maitreya Rishi. Maitreya Rishi being advanced in age and in social stature, Uddhava being very sensitive to these principles, guided Vidura to Maitreya Rishi. And mind you, it's worth noting that Vidura in previous chapters actually openly states that he has no problem accepting shiksha and instruction from Uddhava. So this was by no means a reflection of Vidura. Vidura did not feel himself too great or too old or too senior to receive instruction from Uddhava. But Uddhava, out of his courtesy, has guided Vidura to resume his spiritual quest by engaging in conversations with Maitreya Rishi. So chapter 5, Vidura talks with Maitreya. That's where we are. The first 16 verses are continuous questioning by Vidura. He's basically stating stating the agenda of what he wants to talk about. And actually we're now on verse 12, verses 10 to 16. Maitreya will come in at verse 17. So verses 10 to 16, Vidura is really hammering home a point, which is related to this point. He is hammering home the point that Krishna Katha, topics related to spiritual life and principally related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are actually the ultimate salvation for mankind. So 6 or 7 verses, in fact, 10 to 16 inclusive, 7 verses, Vidura is saying that topics relating to Krishna, hearing about Krishna, discussing Krishna, are the greatest benediction. They are the panacea of the untold difficulties that humankind has to go through in the struggle for existence. And then Maitreya will pick up from those questions and then reveal and satisfy. And in fact, this constitutes a very significant, this conversation between Vidura and Maitreya Rishi constitutes a very significant portion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So to recap this translation again, your friend, the great sage Krishna, Dvaipayana Vyas, has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of people to Krishna Katha, Bhagavad Gita, through their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics. So let's just quickly recap and see what Vidura said. In text 10, Vidura said, I've repeatedly heard about these higher and lower status of human society from the mouth of Vyasadeva, and I'm quite satiated with all these lesser subject matters and their happiness. They have not satisfied me with the nectar of topics about Krishna. So verse 10, he's saying, only topics about Krishna will satisfy me. Text 11, who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Text 12, which we're on, he's saying again, the Mahabharata was created by Vyas to draw people's attention to Krishna Katha through the Bhagavad Gita. Obviously, the Bhagavad Gita is the crown jewel hidden within the crown of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is considered the crown. The crown jewel of the Mahabharata is this Bhagavad Gita. Verse 13, again, Vidura is saying that one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing the topics of Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things, and he achieves a transcendental bliss. Verse 14, verse 15, verse 16. Again and again and again, Krishna Katha, I'm not satisfied. I need to hear more. People need to hear more. If they want to put an end to their misery, they need to hear about Krishna Katha. So it's quite clear, therefore, that this section within a section within a section is drawing our attention to the importance of hearing. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Hearing, chanting, and remembering. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Hearing, chanting, remembering. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. Hearing, chanting, and remembering about Lord Krishna. So in tackling this verse, I'll read the purport quickly, but then what we'll do is that we'll divide the class into 3 different sections, and we'll understand, number 1, why is this concept of hearing emphasized so much? It's Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. This is the part of the Shikshastakam, the 8 verses which were given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he says, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, that the highest victory, the highest achievement is to be able to chant and hear the names and the glories of Krishna. So why is this hearing so important? Why not reading? Why not, cooking prasadam? Why not doing anything else? Why is it that hearing specifically is so important? And then what to hear? We've heard here Mahabharata is a mundane topic, and it's only for Bhagavad Gita. We have 108 Upanishads. We have 4 Vedas. We've got so many 2 Itihasas principally, Mahabharata and Ramayana, and that's just the Shruti. We have the Smriti. We have Vedangas. We have Brahmanas. We have the commentaries, right? The Tikas, which are commentaries on all of these Shastras. What do we hear? And then who to hear from. So why hearing is important? What are we supposed to be hearing? And who to hear from? The why, what, and who is what we're going to focus on in today's class. But before we do that, we'll read the purport of this verse. So purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Abhay Charanarvindam Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas is the author of all Vedic literatures, of which his works Vedanta Sutra, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Mahabharata are very popular readings. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.4.25, Srila Vyasadeva compiled the Mahabharata for the less intelligent class of men. who take more interest in mundane topics than in the philosophy of life. The Vedanta Sutra was compiled for persons already above the mundane topics, who might already have tasted the bitterness of the so-called happiness of mundane affairs. Akinchana gochara. They feel the bitterness. They're not allured by the promise of this material world. It promises so much, but when you actually get there, it's all very hollow. It's interesting. There was a comment by the world's #1 golfer this week, Scheffler. He's made $65 million before he's 30. He's won 3 or 4 of the world's biggest majors. And he said, he's just recently become a father. He's married. And he said, I've put so much emphasis in my 30 years on this world in becoming the world's #1 golfer. And he said, now that I've done that and I've reached the pinnacle, I've actually realized that there are more important things in the world than golf. And our George Harrison, who was such an ardent follower of Srila Prabhupada, he said, everyone is trying to climb that wall of success. They want to make it to the top of the pyramid. And he said, not only have I climbed to the top of that wall, I've looked over. I've looked over to the other side. What is it that people are trying to climb this wall? Where are they trying to get to? What is this hallowed land that they're trying to reach? And he said, there's nothing there. All this mundane achievement, there's nothing there. So those who have, and the rest of us, is that hankering and lamenting. We think if we have, unlimited money and unlimited beauty and unlimited fame and unlimited opulence and unlimited strength and all of these things, that somehow if we fortify ourselves with some material acquisition, we will get what it is that we're actually looking for. But those people who have got to the summit, there's nothing more for them to achieve. They still feel empty. So, and Prabhupada is talking about this in the purport. Those who have already tasted the bitterness of so-called happiness of mundane affairs, those people who realize that actually there's a lot of promise and not a lot of delivery, they are ready to go into the deeper shastra, to hear more about the deeper, the more detailed understandings of Krishna. But those people who are still intoxicated with arranging their life in a particular way, yeah, we're going to be so happy when I get this car, when I get this job, when I get this money, when I look this way, when people worship me this way, then I'm going to feel so happy. They don't realize that they're setting themselves up for the fall. But those people who realize, sorry, dude, you're not going to get what you're looking for, they can go even deeper than these preliminary shastras like the Mahabharata. The first, like the Vedanta Sutra, the first aphorism of Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasa, i.e., when one has finished the business of mundane inquiries in the marketplace of sense gratification, only then can one make relevant inquiries regarding Brahman, the transcendence. Brahman means the transcendence. Those persons who are busy with the mundane inquiries which fill newspapers and other such literatures are called Stri Sudra Dvija Bandhu, or women, the laborer class, and unworthy sons of the higher classes, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. Such less intelligent men cannot understand the purpose of Vedanta Sutra, although they may make a show of studying the sutras in a perverted way. Okay. Heavy here by Srila Prabhupada. I've just announced two of one of my Vartmana Pradakshika Guru, who is my mother. Is she part of this Stri Sudra Dvija Bandhu? Is she less intelligent? The person who first took me to the temple, who first put a tilak on my head, who first took me to Mangala Arti, is she unworthy to read the higher literatures? Like the Amala Puran, the Srimad Bhagavatam, should she just log out of the class now? Absolutely not. What Srila Prabhupada is talking about is a reference from the Dharma Shastra. From the Dharma Shastra, it is said that in the ideal society, women are more capable in dealing with affairs of this world, nurturing, cultivating, maintaining the home in this world. And in the ideal society, for example, in the Satya Yuga, the men are more adept at dealing with the metaphysical, things which go beyond this world. So, and both are required. We were just reading in text 11 of Shri Upanishad that we need to cultivate both knowledge of this world and of the world beyond. So generally, when you are involved in affairs relating to this world, you'll be involved in topics which relate to this world. When you're more involved with affairs which are beyond this world, you'll be more interested in topics which are beyond this world. However, that ideal is now being rendered practically useless. Forget about Dvija Bandhu. Most people are now asuras or rakshasas. Not just because one has, masculine anatomy, does he mean that he is operating at that level of Purush. And not equally that because one is a woman that she is naturally, she is automatically, I should say, disqualified. Because, and Srila Prabhupada also mentions in other purports that when one has given up or is aspiring to give up this designation as a particular body, as a particular individual, when you're aspiring to go beyond, okay, what happens after I give up this body, which is of a man and of a woman? That in itself becomes the qualification. Not that just because you have a woman's body, you are relegated. Because you have a Shudra's body, you are relegated. Because you are not a qualified Vaishya, a Kshatriya, or Brahmana, you are disqualified. No. Actually, Sriram, we will touch upon this. When you have gone to a higher level of giving up your designation, when you have gone beyond that, and generally that is easier for men than for women, for the reasons that I've mentioned, that the psychophysical predisposition of a woman is to be more involved in the material nature. The material nature is a woman, after all. Prakriti, Durga Devi, is the feminine energy, the nurturing energy. But while that might be a predisposition, that is no mean an automatic disqualification. And within our, Ganga Mata Goswamini, the mother of the wife of Nityananda Prabhu, Mother Sachi, Yashoda, there are many examples within our Shastra of women who have not only achieved the highest transcendence, but act as guides for all of us, the gopis of Vrindavan, the manjaris. So we must understand it in that way and not become, I had felt that it was important to make that point. Anyway, such less intelligent men cannot understand the purpose of Vedanta Sutra, although they make a show of studying the sutras in a perverted way. The real purpose of Vedanta Sutra is explained by the author himself in Srimad Bhagavatam. Who is the author? Srila Vyasadeva. Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva. And anyone trying to understand the Vedanta Sutra without reference to Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly misguided. Such misguided persons who are interested in the mundane affairs of philanthropic and altruistic work under the misconception of the body as the self, right? That's what I said. Under the misconception of the body as the self. So again, when we are operating, we are fixated with the body and the things related to this body, yes, our designation can be a disqualification. But if we are man, woman, Shudra, and we are operating or aspiring to operate beyond the designation of the body, then we can take advantage of Mahabharata and even deeper literatures. Haridas Thakur, he is the only Acharya that Srila Prabhupada has included within his Prema Dhavani. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Haridas Thakur was a Shudra born in a Muslim family. What could be a greater disqualification than that? No concept of the Vedic tradition. And yet he is the one Acharya that we always worship every single day after every single arati, because he was not under the misconception of the body and the bodily designations of the self. So those who are not under the misconception of the body as the self could better take advantage of the Mahabharata, which was specifically compiled by Srila Vyasadeva for their benefit. The great author Vyasadeva has compiled the Mahabharata in such a way that the less intelligent class of men and women who are more interested in mundane topics may read the Mahabharata with great relish, and in the course of such mundane happiness can also take advantage of Bhagavad Gita, the preliminary study of Srimad Bhagavatam, which again is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Srila Vyasadeva had no interest in writing a history of mundane activities other than to give less intelligent persons a chance for transcendental realization through Bhagavad Gita. Vidura's reference to the Mahabharata indicates that he had heard of the Mahabharata from Vyasadeva, his real father, while he was away from home and he was touring the places of pilgrimage. So, okay, what to We've discussed that purport in detail. It's interesting there that Vidura has already heard of the Mahabharata, even though the Mahabharata only happened, I mean, was still ongoing. I mean, the Kurukshetra war may not have even happened at that point that Vidura has left, because Vidura leaves prior to the war taking place. So how quickly was this compiled? And this also is an indication of the eternal nature of the Vedas. In fact, this is a perfect segue into the eternal knowledge of the Vedas. How can someone be talking about something which has only just concluded, or may have not even concluded, because Vidura has left prior to the Kurukshetra war even happening? Mahabharata is whole portions about what happens during the war and what happens afterwards, Bhishma Parva. So in one sense, this is very interesting. In fact, you see, this knowledge has not occurred. It is being just like a play that is happening on stage. We may have actually heard about the play and read about the play, and still we go to see the play. We are engrossed in it as if it is the first time. That is the way of Vedic wisdom, and that is the way also of the Itihasas. Don't think that this is the only time that the Mahabharata has occurred, and don't think this is the last time that the Mahabharata is going to occur. We've already said that in one day of Brahma, there are 1,000 Chaturyugas. In 12 hours of Brahma, actually, 1,000 Chaturyugas. And each one of those Chaturyugas, at the end of the Dwarpa Yuga, the Mahabharata is happening. So we're about midway through the 12 hours of Brahma. It has already happened 500 times. So in one sense, you can predict that the thing is going to happen. And Vidura maybe even had knowledge that he had to leave. But that shows that this knowledge is not just about learning about a particular time and place, about a particular random group of people that we happen to think is important. No, this has been pointed out and ascribed by the acharyas as one of the most important histories, itihas. Actually, Mahabharata and Ramayana are known as itihasa. Itihasa. And so it was. Itihasa means, it doesn't just mean history, it means that this is a perfect representation of what has happened and why. Itihas. And so it was. So why is hearing it so important? And why is it hearing specifically that is so important? Why is it that by meditating and contemplating on things that become such a critical thing? Why is it not, they say, the way to a man's heart is through his belly. The way to anyone's heart is through the belly. Why not just eat prasad? This is also nectar of Krishna. Why is it about hearing? And I think it's important to understand hearing as a sense first. You know that. Samkhya philosophy, which is a study of everything in existence, subdivides everything in existence into 26 different categories. Of those categories, 10 are senses. 5 senses are knowledge gathering. In Western philosophy or Western understanding, nomenclature, we have 5 senses, right? Sight, smell, taste, touch, and the ability to hear, right? 5 senses. The Vedic wisdom also adds another 5, which are karmendriya. Jnanendriya means knowledge acquiring. Karmendriya means the senses which are of action. And they include the arms, the activity of the arms to move, the legs to move. These are senses of motion, of dynamism, the senses of the tongue to be able to speak, the sense of to be able to evacuate, the sense to be able to procreate. So we have these karmendriya, these active senses. But of all of these senses, the most powerful sense is the sense of being able to hear. When you want to deaden the senses, for example, if you're going to have an operation, what do? You put somebody to sleep. If you want to deaden the sense of sight, you're about to perform an operation, and it might be ghastly for the patient to be able to see, you put them to sleep. If there's too much pain, you put them to sleep. That way you cannot see, that way you cannot smell, that way you do not feel. But when you want to rouse somebody from sleep, what is the sense that you use? Do you start wiggling somebody's arms? Do you start moving their legs? Do you give them something to, sometimes they do some smelling salts, but generally, I would say a significant proportion of the world's population will set an alarm. They will use the power of hearing to be able to rouse themselves from a slumber, from a dormant state of being, from a sluggish state of being. If you want to rouse yourself, you use the sense of hearing. People say sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. But actually, I would say that the wounds that take much longer to heal are the wounds which are spoken. Harsh words, harsh comments. You know, if somebody makes an ugly face at you, you probably forget it in a day. But if somebody says something to you, that can stick with you for a lifetime or even lifetimes. And there's enough accounts in the Mahabharata, for example, with Bhishma and Amba. She kept the words of Bhishma. She even took another birth just to avenge the words that Bhishma had said to her, denying her marriage to him. So sticks and stones may break your bones. Names will never hurt you. Names will hurt you and hurt your false ego for lifetimes to come. So power of sound is so important. And it's interesting, in Japan, they performed a series of experiments regarding sound and relating to different sound. So they took, in controlled conditions, they took 3 different samples of water and they subjected this water, they froze this water under controlled conditions and they subjected it to different sound types. Now, one controlled environment had thrash metal. So they were freezing the water, reducing the temperature in this controlled environment, and they played thrash metal. So the sound vibration was passing through the water. In one, they had no sound. And in one, they had classical music. And they did this test several times. You can read the reports are available online. Where there was thrash metal passed through the water, the crystallization of that water was haphazard. There was no pattern. Where there was no sound, there was a partial crystal formation which was formed. And under those controlled conditions where beautiful music was played, harmonious music, beautiful concentric patterns were made, beautiful uniformity was found throughout the freezing. So if our body, the greatest constituent part of our physical body is water. Scientists estimate anywhere between 60 and 80%. That's also confirmed by the Vedas. Panchabhuta. Water is the principal composition of our body. How important is it then that the sound that we subject our physical form to, how important is the sound that we subject our physical form to in terms of the proper operation of our body? What to speak then of our subtle body? Because we understand that while our physical body is made up of 5 material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, beyond that, our conscious, you know, the computer, right? You have the physical car, the motorized car, but you also have the electronics. The electronics of this vehicle is actually the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the consciousness of our consciousness or our subtle body of this mind and intelligence, false ego, is not determining how we think and operate in this life, but is the one thing that we'll take with us into our next life. It's like the passport. You may leave the country, but you've got to take your passport with you. And the stamp in your visa is in that passport. That is your subtle consciousness. And as you are manipulating that consciousness, so you will, it's like your permanent record. So you will adopt a different body. You may have a human body, but if you have despicable thoughts, your subtle mind will take on, it's described about them, your subtle mind will take on a despicable disposition. And when you leave this body, you will take a despicable birth. If you have divine thoughts, your subtle body will take on a divine temperament. Your activities will become divine and you will adopt a divine body after this birth. And if you are absorbed in transcendental thoughts, in contact with transcendental sound vibration, you will take on a transcendental body at the end of this lifetime. I should share this Shastric reference. I've mentioned it before. I couldn't remember the verse. But there is a verse in the purport where Srila Prabhupada says that at all moments, we are manipulating the subtle body. And the subtle body becomes like a permanent record, like a passport or a permanent record. And based on the nature, based on the visa that we've given, so based on the nature of our permanent record, if we've got criminal history, we'll take a criminal birth. And if we've got a beautiful history, we'll take a beautiful birth. And if we have a transcendental history, no more birth. That is the guarantee of the Shastra. So it's so important that we start to reinforce not only ourselves physically with the right sound vibration, but also subtly. You know, it said that you are what you eat. And I would also say that you think what you hear. You will think, you will reflect, you will process things in your life based on what you hear. Because what you hear will shape subtly your subtle consciousness. And then you will process the world in that particular way. You know, the Shastra says, for a man who is trying to be sober, what is more dangerous than even the presence of alcohol is the presence of an alcoholic who is giving you 101 reasons, drip feeding in your ear, why you should go ahead and drink. More dangerous than a knife is those words of a murderer who say, oh, if we took a weapon and we could kill. So the sound vibration can actually inspire you, thinking, feeling, willing, doing. When you start hearing, you start thinking, then you start feeling, then you start willing it to happen, and then you start doing. So what we are subjecting our subtle body to, the sound vibration we're subjecting our subtle body to, is a direct, will have a direct impact on the way that we process the world, and a direct impact on the life that we will obtain, and a direct impact on the course of our existence. It may be subtle at first, 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop. But before you know it, the drops of mundane contemplation will outweigh the transcendental, will outweigh the divine. So it's up to us what kind of sound vibration we want to subject ourselves to. If it's despicable sound vibration, expect despicable outcomes, expect despicable responses. And if it is divine, expect divine. And if it is transcendental, then expect transcendental. And in fact, what does Prahlad Maharaj say? Srila Prabhupada loved this verse and often quoted it. 7th canto, 5th chapter, 23rd verse. Sri Prahlad Uvacha. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Satyam, Atmanivedanam. Iti Pumsharpita Vishnu Bhaktischinna Valakshana Kriyeta Bhagavati Yatha Tanmanye Ditam Uttamam. So what this means, that's the Nava Anga Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So hearing, chanting, and remembering about the names and qualities of the Lord, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord worship through arti, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering him your best friend, and surrendering everything unto him, Atmani Vedanam. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. But of these, the initial Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, all the acharyas say, if you can't do 9, then do 3. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. Haryanama, Haryanama, Haryanama eva kevalam. Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. That in this age of Kali, Haryanama, Haryanama, Haryanam eva kevalam. That there are the holy name of Krishna, the holy name of Hari, the holy name of Hari is the only way in Kali Yuga to be able to uplift your consciousness. Sound vibrate. It's the only way in the age of Kali to really uplift your consciousness. The other 6 are secondary. But if you have not uplifted your consciousness, we can be doing an arti. And many mornings I'm doing the arti and I'm thinking about all the work that I have to do and this and that and other things. And until the sadhana and the holy name is in place, then all the other 6, offering arti and offering prayers and considering oneself a servant and considering the Lord the best friend, then they come into play. Those 3, hearing, chanting, and remembering that sound vibration of Krishna Katha, that is the basis for those others. So these are the things that we're supposed to be hearing in Krishna Katha. But what is it? What is it? What is the Krishna Katha that we are supposed to hear? There are so many Vedas. We've talked about it. And how are we on time? But briefly speaking, there is two forms of hearing. There's the Shruti and there is the Smriti. Shruti literally means that which is heard. What is it? Apaureshya. Apaureshya. It means it is not come from the Purusha. It's Apaureshya. It has come directly from the Supreme Lord. Tene Ridhe Brahma. It was revealed to Brahma through his heart. It was also explained to him in more detail by the Lord in the form of Hayagriva. But ultimately, this is coming directly from the Lord himself. Shruti, Shravanam, right? We've just talked about Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Shravanam and Shruti have the same root. It means that which is Shravanam. It means that which is spoken. Sorry, that which is heard. Shravana means that which is heard. And Smriti means that which is remembered. Smaranam and Smriti, that which is remembered. Shruti and Shravanam, that which is spoken and then heard. So Brahma has heard this from the Lord, and Narad has heard it from Brahma, and Vyas has heard it from Narad, and Madhvacharya has heard it from Vyas, and so on and so forth, right? They've heard it, and then they transmit it, and then that is heard, and then that is transmitted. So we have the 4 Vedas, we have the 108 Upanishads, but then we also have the Gitas. Bhagavad Gita means divine song of Krishna. This was spoken in Mahabharata. Now we've just heard how Vyasadeva, he's written the Mahabharata, right? He's written the 18 Puranas, of which the Srimad Bhagavatam is the top. He's written the Itihasas, such as the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Actually, the Ramayana was written by Valmiki Maharshi, but he's written the Mahabharata. But within this Mahabharata, we have the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord directly. So even though it is written by somebody else, those 700 shlokas of the 100,000 shlokas of Mahabharata, those 700 are directly spoken by the Lord himself, and therefore they're in the category of Shruti. Shruti, that which is heard. Smriti, that which is remembered. Right? Smriti, the Puranas, there are 18 Puranas. 16 Puranas, 16 are in ignorance, 16 are in passion, 16 are in goodness. And of them all, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the cream. Itihasas, we've just talked about itihasas. Histories, as it was, and so it was. Dharma Shastras like Manu Smrita, Darshanas, there's so many, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, these all come beneath Smriti. So which ones to hear? Which ones to listen? We've got so many. That's why, along with Shastra, Krishna Katha, we also have a formula of Guru and Sadhu. Shastra is never ending. Just to understand Sanskrit grammar would take you 12 years, as Srila Prabhupada was saying. Just to get a basic understanding of Sanskrit grammar is 12 years of study. What then to go ahead and read all of these? What then to go and understand all of these books? In our 100 years of life, and generally for most people, 75 to 80 in Kali Yuga, how will we read all of this and come to the right conclusion? That is why tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. We want the jnaninas, we want the jnana, the understanding. Tattva darshanaha. The guru, the bona fide guru, not just self-appointed rubber stamp guru, the bona fide guru, tattva darshanaha. He has seen the truth. And therefore, he can guide jnaninas. Where can you get the jnana? Where do you read in the Vedas for this? Where do you read in the Upanishad for this? Srila Prabhupada he quoted from the Rig Veda. People don't know this. Purusha Sukta is from the Rig Veda. Srila Prabhupada pointed to the Upanishads. He translated Sri Isha Upanishad, Isha Upanishad, Mondakya Upanishad, Svetash Avatara Upanishad. Prabhupada has quoted all of these. He's quoted the Gita. One of the first books Srila Prabhupada translated was Bhagavad Gita. Macmillan Bhagavad Gita, I think the first one was published in 1967. So Prabhupada, the Guru, is pointing out, here, this is what you listen to in the Shruti. If you want to understand the absolute truth, this part of this Veda, this part of the Upanishad, this part of the Gita. And from the Smriti, this Purana, Mahapuran, Amala Puran, Srimad Bhagavatam, this part of the Itihas. In fact, Prabhupada didn't even translate the Itihasas because he was struggling to find a bona fide copy of Mahabharata. This part of the Dharma Shastra, Prabhupada is quoting from Manu Samhita. This part of the Darshanas, Prabhupada is alluding. He said such and such and such and such a books from Chanakya, for example, Niti Shastra of Chanakya. This is a Vedanga. This is a limb of the Vedas, an extra commentary for social things. But Prabhupada talked about Chanakya. So the Guru, the Guru who is trying to give you pure bhakti, he can guide you to that part of the Vedas. The Guru who you're approaching for some karma or some, please Guruji, I want a new house and I want a good wife for my son and all of this kind of thing, he will point you to another part of the Vedas. But that's why to think that I am going to approach the Vedas myself and I will be able to navigate it for my own particular laksh, my own particular objective is not possible. So we need to hear from the Shastra, but we need to hear through the guidance of the Guru, Tattva Darshana, because he has seen the truth. He has seen the truth. If we want to come to the point that Vyasadeva is talking about, the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of people to Krishna Katha through their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics, right? So the Guru can navigate through the Mahabharata, the Guru, the bona fide spiritual master, can navigate through the Mahabharata and lead the disciple to the Bhagavad Gita. The bogus Guru, who Prabhupada also talked about earlier on, who gives some commentary and some guidance, he won't be able to discern what the truth is. But the bona fide Guru, he will be able to navigate which areas of the Krishna Katha you need to focus on. But then along with the Guru, there is the sadhu. The Guru may also be the sadhu. He may also be providing the shiksha. But generally, the Guru will give instruction, but we will carry out those instructions alongside the other devotees. And in this verse, later on in the third canto, 25th chapter, 25th verse, it is said, Satatam prashangan mama virya sambidho bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha toj joshana asva apavarga vartmani shadharatir bhakti anukramishyati. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge in the association of such devotees, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation. And thereafter he is freed, and his attraction to hearing about the topics of the Supreme Lord becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. So we can see hearing is the most important sense. Hearing will benefit the physical body, but also the subtle body. We need to hear about transcendental topics if we want to have a transcendental existence which is freed from the suffering of this world, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. But in order to hear topics of Krishna Katha, we must know where the sources of Krishna Katha are. The Vedas are the sources of Krishna Katha. But the Vedas are so vast, so then we need the Guru to navigate to the ideal points. But then even with the Guru, he may point it out. Who are we going to take that journey with? The Guru will show the map, but the devotees will walk that journey of that map alongside us. And in their association, they will fortify us. If I deviate, he pulls me. If he deviates, I pull him. In the same way that we talked about the drunkard who can divert the mind away, the devotee, the sadhu, he will cut any of those unnecessary attachments and he'll keep us attached and relishing to the topic of Krishna. It is very important to keep the association of sadhu. Sadhu means to cut. Guru means heavy. He gives the heavy instruction. And the sadhu, he will unencumber us, encumber us from any of those distractions that are keeping us away from what the Guru is trying to give to us. And in his association, in their association, the sadhus and the sadhvis, not just the male sadhus, but the sadhvis, in their association, we will generally begin to relish. If you're interested in a topic or you're interested in a sport and you engage in that sport by yourself, okay, some fun in it. But if you go to a society where everyone is interested in that sport, everyone is interested in that topic, how much more relishable is it? You can sit and watch a sports game by yourself, or you can go to play table tennis and lift up one side and just hit against the other side. Okay. But then you can play with somebody else. You'll get better and better. You can play in a league. You'll get better and better. You can play in a tournament. You'll get better and better. You can understand tips and tricks, and you'll hone your interest and you'll refine your ability. In the same way, in the association of sadhus, you can try and conduct your guru's instruction by yourself. But in the association of sadhus, you will derive inspiration. You will derive not just inspiration, but you'll hone your own abilities in their association as to how to become attracted to Krishna. Srila Jiva Goswami says that when one develops a desire to understand the Shastra, that is only through the mercy of the spiritual master. But Jiva Goswami showed through his own activity by daily meeting with the other 5 Goswamis of Vrindavan, that by being in the company of the Goswamis, you will not just develop an attraction, it will become a full-blown, irresistible force within your life. Every day they would come and discuss. Some days they would discuss from hours on end, sometimes for days, forgetting to eat, forgetting to drink, forgetting everything of the external world. So absorbed were they in this Krishna Katha. And from a vague attraction, it became the overwhelming force. And in fact, it became such an overwhelming force that it transcended even time and space. And their inspiration in the association of each other is still continuing to inspire us through our Guru Parampara. All glories to Srila Rupa Goswami, all glories to Srila Sanatana Goswami, all glories to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, all glories to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, all glories to Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, all glories to Jiva Goswami. So in the why is because sound vibration will be the legacy that we can take with us. We may have the perfect body while we're alive, but everyone will die. Our consciousness will go with us. And what our consciousness is will determine our destination at the end of this life. And even it will determine a lot of things in this life, but certainly, without doubt, it will determine where we go after this life. What to read? Well, that has to be given by the Guru. It is in the Vedas, Krishna Katha is in the Vedas, but the Guru will identify exactly what we need to emphasize on. And the sadhus will keep us true to our Guru's instruction. And the sadhus will help us take this raw instruction and sculpt it into a beautiful treasure that will define our life one way or another. So that is the importance of hearing Krishna Katha. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We've run out of time. I had to abbreviate it then, but if there are any question, comments, or corrections, I'd be delighted to take those now. I'm sorry it got a little bit right. I had much more that I wanted to talk about, but anyway, for time, we'll wrap it up there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for such a fantastic class. And before we go on to questions and comments, we'd like to welcome Mataji to this group, and also Martha Rachwani Mataji to this group. Thank you so much for giving your association today, and let us welcome both of them with 3 Hari Bols. We meet every day at the same. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Thank you very much. We meet at the same time every day, same link, and it's all the 7 days in a week. So feel free to join whenever you are able to, and we'll be really honored to have your association. Okay, let us now open it up for questions and comments. Any questions and comments from the group? Kindly unmute and ask your question or give your comments.
I have a comment. I can see a book there underneath Srimad Bhagavatam which says allergy, and on your thing. And I think that's a beautiful representation that you can either be in the divine realm or you can be in this mundane realm of allergies.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this nice
Well
class.
spotted, well spotted.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. As usual, you are very enthusiastic in your talk, which kind of inspire all of us. I just want to touch a little bit on the Shruti and the Smriti. The Shruti is original and it cannot be changed. And Smriti, they are the sages, the great sages, they wrote the Smriti. So that can be changed with time, place, circumstances, that can be changed. But Shruti cannot be changed, never. Because it's a direct word coming from the Lord's mouth, which is not changed. And the Smriti is a realization of others. And how they perceive the Shrutis, then they write their commentaries. That is. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So I would say yes, and I would also say no. So,
okay.
And I'll explain why. Now, we know that Vidur has heard about the Mahabharata before the Mahabharata has happened. The Mahabharata has not concluded, and Vidur has already heard about Mahabharata. Do you know that there's also a Mahabharata in the heavenly planets? So the Mahabharata on this planet is only 100,000. I was looking for the Shastric reference. I'm pretty sure this is either Sanatana Goswami or Jiva Goswami reference it. It's either in Hari Bhakti Vilas, but it's probably in one of the Sandarbhas. Jiva Goswami mentions that there is a Devi Mahabharata, which is 1,000,000 verses long, which the demigods read. So now, what this means is that even the Smriti and the Itihas are eternal, right? They're going on every single Chatra Yuga. So the principles and the key elements of these stories stay the same. However, there are some differences, and these are not differences because, the sages think, oh, let's just, let's rub it out and put something else in and update it for the times. Because the Lord has unlimited variety. Take Nrsimhadev's appearance, right? And there's in the end of the 10th, the purport of the 10th verse of Sri Upanishad, Prabhupada gives a synopsis of how Nrsimhadev appears. It's in the 7th canto, but Prabhupada gives a synopsis. It is said that Hiranyakashipu said, I will not be killed by man, nor by beast. I will not be killed by weapon or by any living entity, right? I will not be killed on the land or in the air. And he gives all of these different, I will not be killed inside, I will not be killed outside. So in our rendition of how Nrsimhadev appears in this particular Chatra Yuga, in the Treta Yuga that has just passed, what happens? Who volunteers? How does Nrsimhadev appear? Hitesh Prabhu, how does Nrsimhadev appear? Or Kirtika Mataji, how does Nrsimhadev appear? He comes, Hiranyakashipu cuts the pillar, and Nrsimhadev comes out, right? And then he's not a man, he's not a beast, he doesn't have weapons, nor does he use his hand, he uses his claws. He doesn't do in the land or in the sky because he puts him on his lap, right? It's not inside, it's not outside because he's on the threshold of the door. So that is how we understand Nrsimhadev appearing. In previous iterations of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in a previous Chatra Yuga, Nrsimhadev, he enters not through the doorway, not from the pillar, but he flies in. Because it said no man, and he flies in and he's mid-air, and he kills Hiranyakashipu mid-air rather than being on the lap. So yes, the Smriti can change slightly because the Lord will enact his pastime slightly. But that is not at the discretion of the author. And that is not at our discretion to be able to, I think that we should cut out 2 or 3 lines, because the fundamental principle is the same. The principle is that no man can escape death, because death is a part of time, and a time is a part of the Supreme Lord. That's the inexorable truth in all of this. There is no material way by which we can defy death. We may be able to stave it off for some time, but we cannot defy death. Death is associated with time. Time is the inviolable and inexorable component of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot sidestep it. So the details of how the Smriti are represented may alter, but the principles of the Smriti stay the same. So we shouldn't, sometimes, and that's the tendency now of all of us, and actually the digital age that we live in. Without, even by depending on Google or ChatGPT and summaries and YouTube videos and shorts, we can get little grasps. But because, and this was a whole part that I wanted to get into, and Prabhupada talks about, because we've spent all of our education learning useless things, useless trivia, when we really should have been absorbing our minds into this. And Prabhupada even says this in one of the purports I wasn't able to get to. Prabhupada says that Srila Prabhupada was saying, where is it? Sorry. I don't mean to go off at a tangent, but I think this is an important point, and thank you, Mataji, for bringing it up. Where is that verse? Yes. Prahlad Maharaj was being taught by his material teachers, Sanda and Amarka, and everything he learned from them was useless. He learned all the science, material sciences and diplomacy and this and that. It's all these skill sets without understanding the fundamental point of life. And Prabhupada saying this education present throughout the world is similar to what Sanda and Amarka were trying to give Prahlad. It has no value. Everyone is being educated how to live comfortably with reference to the comforts of the body. This is not education. Real education is to understand oneself, self-realization. And with that purpose, one should make progress in Krishna consciousness, beginning with Shravana. This is what Prabhupada is saying. Because all of these different skills, if we are not clear on our purpose, what is the point of making the body comfortable? Of course, if you are clear on your purpose, and you then proceed to make your body comfortable so you can execute your purpose rigorously and for the benefit not just of yourself, but of your family and your wider community, then great. All of these things have context. But Prabhupada would say all of these skills are like zeros. If I have 1 billion zeros and no one before it, it's still worth 0. But if I just have one, a solitary one, and that one is I understand the purpose of my life, even if I have no other skill sets, it still has value. Of course, the ideal combination is I have that one and all of those zeros. Then we can do the wider impact. So my point is that, yes, Mataji, there is a difference between Shruti and Smriti. Smriti does vary, but the fundamental principles cannot be altered. And when we are able to revive an education system, focus around Krishna Katha, and we are immersing our children from in the womb to the point that they leave in these principles and subtleties, they will become equipped to not only conquer over death, but even as a byproduct to be able to conquer over this whole planet. They will become so capable that all of these things that we struggle so hard to manage in our lives, it will just be a byproduct of the way that they act. There is no dearth of anything in this world, apart from, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge is the only dearth. Everything else is there in the. But thank you, Mataji. You always ask questions, and I can give a whole class just on that. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That was amazing to know that Nrsimhadev just flew in. He didn't come from the
and I'm sure there's many other ways that Nrsimhadev in previous Jatya he came in, but the principle remained the same, even though the details changed. Yes. Hiranyakashipu cannot defy death. And Nrsimhadev will find 1,000,000 ways to show that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I think we've exhausted our time, but Hitesh Prabhu, you have a burning question. Go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone. Well, it was just a comment about the Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaran.
Vishnu
Well,
Smaran.
and Krishnarjuna Das already mentioned the point, and it was about the hearing. I was even thinking about, because besides Shravanam, there is even Kirtanam. And yes, hearing is very important. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is very important. But the Kirtanam is like the recorded chanting of Srila Prabhupada in the books. And even while chanting every day, beside the ears, even the tongue is very important. Kirtanam. So we chant and hear, chant and hear. Even when we and chant and hear, this is Nam Smaranam. And when we hear Srila Prabhupada's books reading, it's about Leela Smaranam. So I was just thinking, like, besides hearing even the Kirtanam, and Krishnaji Das already mentioned all the three processes together. Very important. Very nice class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, bro. And as we pointed out in that verse in the 7th canto, those three, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, will also lead to all the other ones. Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Sakyam, Dasyam, Atmani Vedanam. They will all, those secondary 6 will all have value if we perform these 3 nicely. In fact, all we really need is these 3. Prabhupada said, all I need is a tree and I can sit and chant all day. Perfect. And in fact, Prabhupada did that in Tompkins Square Park, 9th of October, 1966. He just sat under a tree with one bongo and just chanted in the middle of New York.
Thank you very much. There is, sorry, Chandni, Matsi, I forgot, you had a question on the chat. What is the meaning of Devi Mahabharata?
What is this? Oh, is Mataji? Oh, she's still there. So there was this, not Devi, but Daivi. Daivi. Daivi means divine. Devi means of Shakti. So of the, so you have Shakti of the Shaktiman. And Daivi means of the higher nature. So either of the heavenly planets or the supreme. But there is a connection, but Daivi is a slightly different word to Devi. So Daivi Mahabharat, and again, I need to find the Shastric reference again, but I'm pretty sure it's Jiva Goswami. He mentions that there are various versions of the Smritis. So we have a Mahabharat that we are familiar with, 100,000 verses. We even get this Mahaprashade Govinde Namna Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punyam Batam Rajan Vishwasaneva Jayate. This verse is also from the Mahabharat that we have. The 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita are part of this 100,000 Mahabharat that we have on this planet. However, in the heavenly planets, the Devas have the Devas means the demigods, they have their own version of the Mahabharat. And this is far more elaborate than the Mahabharat that we have here. But the ultimate point of both that Mahabharat and this Mahabharat remains the same, which is to point everyone towards Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And within the Bhagavad Gita, to point everyone towards Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishimi Masacha. But the conclusion of everything, of this whole pastime of Mahabharata, is ultimately to surrender yourself unto Krishna. And he will remove any reactions and he will help you, and you do not need to fear. So that was the point. There are many Mahabharats from previous yugas. There will be many more Mahabharats in future, right? Is everyone clear that we're in a cyclical time? Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga, Kali Yuga. At the end of Kali Yuga, Kalki will come, and then we'll start again, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So at the end of each Dwarpa Yuga, Mahabharata will be written. And there may be some slight details, as we mentioned with Indulekha, that are different. There's a Mahabharata in the heavenly planets, an elaborate Mahabharata there. And there may even be a Mahabharata in the lower planets. Who knows? Bali Maharaj may have his own extended commentary on Mahabharata, which may have even more. But the purpose of all of these Mahabharats will be the same, to point you towards Krishna's conversation with Arjun, the Bhagavad Gita. And the purpose of that conversation will be the same, to point you towards this point. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam jaham tam sarva papebhyo mokshayasmi. So that's the point that I was making. And so therefore, when we hear and listen, it is always ultimately to come to this point and to the ultimate conclusion. I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Chandniji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for your response. I think we will conclude the session for today. We have exhausted our time and we have run over it. Can I request Eastern Prabhu? Prabhu, are you able to end the session for us today? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble senses. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for the good class on the steps of devotional service, which can bring the other steps to be manifested to us. I really enjoyed it, and I hope to also learn by listening and hearing more of the Krishna Katha that will build the faith and the conviction to Krishna consciousness. With that, I would like to request each and every one of us to unmute and chant one round of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Just before you do that, Eastern Prabhu, I have to say there's something called a Bhagavat Sapta. And that is when you listen to Srimad Bhagavatam continuously for 7 days, like Parikshit Maharaj did. He got through the whole Bhagavatam. But you've been doing Bhagavat Saptas in ISKCON Eldoret for months or even years. Your life is one continuous Bhagavat Sapta. How many years has this been going on now? So you are all on the right track. You are hearing Bhagavatam every day, and your success is assured. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha.
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रभुपाद की जय।
Jai, Jai.
Krishnarjuna Das
Jai.
ISKCON Eldoret ki jai.
Jai.
And everywhere else. Jai.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji, for wonderful class. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Eastern Prabhu, for
Hare Krishna.
ending the session for us. Hare Krishna.
Anytime.
Thank you, Hitesh Prabhu,
Hare
for
Krishna.
joining. Hare Krishna.